Imagine this: your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders. I don't know. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
We're definitely going to talk about abortion. Numbers 5 definitely has some innuendos, some things going on. Kind of crazy. I don't think most people see it or ignore it. They don't even know about it, really. It's just a strange passage. People, it's like oh, this is a strange thing. I don't know what to do with it. Well, let's just go through it and, let's see what we can do with it. But before we do that, I just want to update you on my life, so I didn't say this at all, but got laid off in May or something. Good now. It's easy to talk about it when you're over it, when you're done with it. And it's not that it was hard or anything to talk about it. It was just that, I don't know, people didn't need to know at the time. I didn't need pity and sympathy. And I don't know, people worried, actually. I don't know. Humans are complex, right? But, oh my God, I'm wheezing. Give me a second. Yeah. So yeah, that happened. And at good, it was first, at first it was good. I do want to say that, because I just had time to do everything that I wanted and that I felt behind on. Guys, I did finish 12 albums. This is crazy. Yeah. So next year, every month, third Wednesday of the month, album is coming out. Now, maybe you're old school like me and you think, album, this is 12, 15 songs. Not quite, just for marketing reasons, had to chop it down to like 6, 7 songs. Don't even start with me. But yes, actually 5 to 7 songs. Oh God, I hate everything. I hate the culture. No, I don't. Uh, but yeah, so I did that. That took, let's say, for 2 months, I was like the most productive human being on the planet. So yeah, how that story went basically, for the first 2 weeks after getting laid off, the project, went to another company, for, a lot of reasons. Everyone speculates, but yeah, I guess that doesn't matter. I did a good job though. I just want to say that. Actually, I think it might be important to say that. I did excellent in terms of, like, by definition. I did the best that I could. I put in, the most effort that I could. I was there, present, ready to learn, ready to grow, and I did my part, and that actually impressed, my one of the bosses that actually was the one who made a way for me to come back. And so, like, I don't think it's talked about enough, but the way you work is a form of worship, right? Is a form of glorifying God, is a form of being, set apart, is a form of showing that God is real, And I can honestly say, like, during that time that I was working, I don't know, like, it felt otherworldly in terms of, like, the capabilities that I was bringing out. Maybe that's just because I haven't been challenged in a while, and I finally got challenged, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking killing it. That could be it. But just this thing, I mean, the same thing happens with music. The same thing even happens here. Like, when I listen back to this, I'm like mind blown of how impactful it is to me. Like, I forget, like, I don't know the words that are coming out of my mouth. You know what I mean? And then I I listen back and I'm like, my goodness, why am I not famous? I'm just kidding. But like if it impacts me so much, like, how, I wonder what it can do to other people. Or I wonder if it does do that to other people. But Is that cocky? I don't know. Like it really like I've made myself cry like listening back, and that's what I mean. It's just like, wow, this I genuinely think this is important to say, and I genuinely feel what I feel. I guess I don't know. Yeah, maybe on some like narcissistic level, I just connect with myself. I don't know, man. But my point being is that like I do my task and I do my best, and I just I do like I am one tree in the forest kind of deal. And then when I see the forest, I know that the analogy is the other way around, but like when I see the whole thing done, like I'm thinking about what I was doing step one, like writing the notes or singing a song on the piano, you know, uh, just listening to feedback and doing it, like that's all I'm doing in the moment, in the present. And then the final outcome is like, whoa, how did I manage? How could I do this? And so I don't, I don't feel like it comes from me. Like, yeah, which yeah, God, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. I know we're going through a series, but like this idea of, oh my gosh, in person, oh my goodness, I hate when this happens. Imposter syndrome to me is a foreign concept kind of because I don't give glory to myself to begin with. You know what I mean? And so like that this idea of like, oh, I don't feel like I belong here. Well, I mean, does anyone? Like I don't know. Like things just happen, in a very Benny Blanco way. If you listen to him talk about how he's made like the greatest hits of the 2000s and 2010, he's like, it's a blur. Like I don't know, you know? And that's kind of how it is. Like in the moment, he's just having fun. He's just trying things out and feeling things out, and ta-da, it happens. You know, like you can't have imposter syndrome if that's always been the method. If you've always just trusted in the process, if you just trusted, in my sense, in my faith belief that the God's just holding my hand through all of it, and He's not going to stop doing that. So God's not an imposter. So in the muse, the inspiration comes from Him. I can't be an imposter. I'm not the one doing it. So all this to say, so that's why that part's important of my excellence of me pursuing. We read the story of Joseph. I mean, it's the same thing. The reason why he didn't die, the reason why he was put in the position that he was in, it was he just trusted God, and he did his best, and he had character, and he did what he could, and so that's one aspect to it. I did get the stereotypical like layoff depression afterwards though, and that was rough. So basically, again, so I had severance. I was chilling. I had work as a server at a restaurant. Not even in town. I drove to a different town because I live in the middle of nowhere, guys. So yeah, and so boom, 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 produced freaking over 100 songs. Did the what do you call it? Like in the middle of all of that, did the series up till now. Uh, and then there was just a 3 month gap. No, maybe less, 2 months gap. I don't know. Look, I'm really bad with timetables. You know this. And I was just in a slump, man. Like I had no motivation for anything. I had to get through numbers, and for the life of me, I couldn't. And it's not because numbers is numbers. I, I, that was gonna be like the start off joke, I think, but it's just actually I'm really enjoying it. It had zero motivation, and then the schedule I had became overwhelming. So I'm not gonna read the Old Testament in a year. I'm gonna just take my time through it, and I'll tell you why. Because I know I'm all over the place. I'll get back to the depression. But because I would read through like Genesis, like let's say Genesis, right? I'd listen to the audiobook over and over and over again. I would read, skim through, find verses that, appealed to me in some way. And I would just throw it in ChatGPT, have my discussion with ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT to give me an outline. And then, on the outline of everything I've talked about with ChatGPT. And then I would just kind of go through that. Well, the thing is, I just felt this. How do I say it? I just felt like I needed to go back to how I used to take notes, and I'll show you. Let me see. This page I think is a little. Yes, this page is actually better. I'm going to show y'all. If you're on YouTube, you can see this. If not, I'm holding up my notebook, and I have 3 pens, 3 colors, red, blue, and black. And so what I do, and I did this with the majority of the New Testament, is probably why I know it really well. But verses, well, really, I would go verse by verse. So I'd write out the verse in its entirety, and then I would highlight like the phrase, the word that catches my eye in blue, and then take notes on it. So yeah, I'd have the verse, I'd highlight it, put like a little 1, a little 2 over it, and then under the verse I'd hit 1 and then write my note on that. The note, of course, is my thoughts or something I know. Maybe a hyperlink to another verse, like this is what this verse is talking about, or say maybe like give the historical context. It's almost like I'm making a commentary, but it's not quite a commentary because it's mostly just my thoughts, right? And then the red is any questions I have or anything that's like feels contradicting or any doubt. Red is doubt, like I circle it, whatever, and then I write down the question I have, write down the doubt, write down, whatever. And then in blue, I'll try to find the answer. And I don't really move on until I do. Yeah. And then if I feel like I have answers and that's not answering my question, I think maybe you know what I'm talking about. Like it's just not satisfying. I will move on. And I'll move on because to me, it's just a realization of like, maybe I'm not mature enough for this, or maybe I'm not, maybe there's like a perspective shift that I need that God will give me eventually, so I don't get too worried about these doubts or anything. I can hold tension, that's not a big deal. But that's the system I go through. And ever since doing that, that's like slowed down my production a millionfold. I'd crank these videos out, but like if I spend, I don't know. I honestly have zero clue. I mean, I'm still going through the Bible, but it's like I spend an hour and a half a chapter maybe of just writing down verses, taking notes. I will say I'm cheating a little bit, I use ... Like it's getting to a point like if I have to, write out 2 paragraphs and it's like, dude, I need to get through this eventually, and so I'll just ... important phrase, ... important phrase, context, ... important phrase, and then all in quotes, and then highlight and do my business, So that is how I take notes, and I'm going back to that. And great. It slowed down my Bible reading as well. The depression. I've just been it's that sense of purpose, I think it was important though. It was an important season because there were questions that I kind of left off to the side. Questions about ministry, questions about purpose. What am I doing? Like just having that like readjustment conversation with God of like, where are we going? That's an important question to constantly ask yourself because your last season's mission and purpose and goal might not be this season's purpose, mission, and goal. Pivoting is part of life. And I think that's kind of where I was at. Didn't really I was too busy to ask myself these questions, and God definitely gave me a little too much time to ask those questions. And yeah, I avoided it for a long time, and I think maybe that's where really the depression was going, like deeper. I mean, I know that it's also like a stereotypical, not a stereotypical, but like it's a common thing. You lose your job, you're going after jobs. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't say that part of the story. So I was going after jobs, man. I was applying to like 100 jobs in a week, and zero feedback. Zero feedback, dude. If you're any kind of analyst, I feel for you. It is like the hardest job to get an interview for. Um, my goodness, it's just like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. And after 2 weeks, I was like, ah, what do you want? What do you want? And I just felt like God said, hey, don't worry about work. Go do what you need to do. I'll take care of it. I was like, all right. Hey, I just needed an excuse. And so, yeah, worked on music, worked on the podcast. But then after a while, I was like, God, I'm running out of stuff to do and And I think that week even, I got kind of my old job in a different project offered to me. And I was like, you are phenomenal and amazing. And I don't know, like, I feel for anyone who, like, that, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm gloating in that, like, oh, I didn't do anything to get my job. But I did. I trusted, and it was hard because I really, wanted to figure it out on my own. Yeah, and I think that's partly maybe also why I didn't tell anyone, was because they might not have understood that, of like, God told you to stop looking for a job. Really? God told you to just, play on your piano for 10 hours a day. Really? Okay. But yeah, he did. And so, I mean, that gives me the hope that 2026 is going to be the year, but I'm tired of disappointing myself. So expectations are low. I'm just being obedient, doing, what I feel called to do, and that's that. And yeah, oh yeah, the depression thing. Yeah, so it happens. It's like it's a cycle that goes through. You get laid off for a couple of weeks. You're like gunning for a job. It doesn't happen, and usually depression happens then until you find something. And it was delayed a little more, maybe because of faith, but maybe honestly just in a very unsupernatural way, just because I was busy with like my purpose. But then I was done, and I was like, oh well, what now? And yeah, okay, I've chatted enough. Let's get into it finally. Okay. So numbers, dude. I will have. Oh, I guess it's too late now. Yeah, I will have in the description. You can skip this as I'm about to start. Good one. All right. Anyways. Okay. Cool. So numbers. We're finally starting this book. It is. Again, like I said, I know numbers, you're like, oh, this is going to be the boringest thing ever. You're not going to click on this video. But if you have, and if you've gone this far, or if you skipped ahead, I appreciate you. You're going to be mind blown, hopefully, right? So going through numbers, we see a lot of like, in the beginning, census, counting, just all the boring stuff, right? But it is important because it's not a fake story, right? And so like verse 1, for example, it says the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting on the first day of the second month in the second year after they came out of the land of Egypt. So we read that. It's not a fairy tale. This literally is like, okay, 2 years after their rebellion against Egypt, they're out there in the wilderness, and God spoke to them, and boom, this is numbers, right? I think this is important. As we go through, we see these miraculous things happen. It's in the context of, hey, this actually happened. That's hard for. I was actually thinking about this the other day, but like until like I don't know, I don't even think it's 1700s. Like, yeah, whatever, the 1700s. Until the 1700s, people, would read these stories and be like, yeah, that did happen. Now we're like, what's the proof? This isn't possible. And I don't know if that's really an evolution of us. Yeah, that's a long tangent. But okay. Cool. So verse 2 says, take a census. Now, the first thing I thought about is when David took a census, and, it was against the Lord. We'll get there. I think First Chronicles says that Satan tempted David, and then in Kings it says that God persuaded him or something like that. Interesting stuff. But anyways, taking a census, having, knowing the numbers is not a bad thing. I guess that's like I don't know. Yeah, maybe not that impressive, but yeah, it's about trust, right? It's about the perspective. It's about why you're doing it. It's about the heart. But also the census is important in this context because we're going to see how did you say, little pictures of this idea that God does things because he says so. What I mean is this census proves at the end of Numbers that he didn't delay. For example, he did not delay the Israelites from going into the promised land because he wanted the army to increase, or he wanted, the next generation to be like battle ready or anything. It was, he did it because they were faithless. And we'll get to this idea, this concept of faithless as well. But I think that's important, right? This census is important because you don't see a change in numbers at the end of Numbers when they're getting ready to go in. And yeah, there's nothing saying that, they trained their next generation for these wars that are, about to come. So I think that it's, we have to put on that context, those lenses, and see that this book becomes about God and his faithfulness to us, and that his expectation of us is to be faithful back. I think that's really important. This is a thing that I'm going to start attacking, but this notion that morality is the end all be all of Christianity is it's actually heretical. It's actually a heresy. These Republicans that are like, oh, morality and, this is God constructs this morality that is inherent and, objective and da-da-da-da. And everyone who doesn't follow it is immoral. That's not gospel. That's not Christianity. That's being a Republican. You know what I mean? That's being a Western. That's being Western. You know what I mean? And I say that boldly. I know my tone doesn't really. Actually, I just realized I need to bring some energy to this room. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, y'all. I apologize, but yeah, I'm serious about that. I'm serious about this fact that people want to harp on morality so hard, and but we'll read in Numbers, and I'll go through every example of this, where God does not expect moral perfection. He expects you to just trust him. He expects you to follow him. That is a byproduct of that may be morality, because being immoral is destructive to the soul, but it's not the end all be all. Like that, morality is not the mark. And boy, don't get me in that rant, but like, we say sin is missing the mark, and we impose on that definition that the mark is morality. Oh my boy. Oh God, dude. We'll go through this book, and I'll prove it to you that is not the case. So that's one thing. Yeah, even in the Old Testament, I can prove this. I can prove this like with my hands tied behind my back and with a stutter in the New Testament. But in the Old Testament, it's a little tougher, and I can still do it. It's not that challenging. And so, yeah. Okay, cool. Chapter 2. Yeah, sorry. Ranting. Okay, chapter 2, we get the structure of how their camps should be set up. I want to do two things here, and that is one, compare, to Near Eastern, ancient Near Eastern, A&E, yeah, ancient Near Eastern cultures and how their camps were built. And then I also want to strip away any kind of like spiritual significance that people will try to put in the order of this camp, because it's frankly like of such a stretch. And no offense to anyone who thinks otherwise, but there is no order to how they are put here. Let's go through it. So you have on the east side, so on the right side, if the tabernacle was in the middle, right, you have the Levites around them, right, as a border between all the other, oh my goodness, as a border between all the other tribes, that they could not, because they can't go into the tabernacle, they would die or be stoned to death. We'll maybe get there, or, ta-da, that happens. Okay. So on the right side, on the east, like in order, you have Zebulun, Issachar, Judah. Okay. They were the first to move in terms of like, hey, we need to move this way because the pillar of fire, or the pillar of clouds, I guess, is moving in that direction. So what happens when that happens? Judah gets up, they start going, and then, it'd be Issachar, Zebulun, they go. And then the south goes. So Gad, Simeon, Reuben, okay? And then Reuben, I think it's Reuben goes, and then Simeon, and then Gad. Third to move is west. So the left side, of course. You have Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. And then north, you have Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. I've ran through all possible. I've simulated. I've tried. Okay, so this is what I've tried. I'll show you. So I have tried to see if there was some kind of order to population size, right? In terms of like defense, right? So maybe like the strongest and biggest were on the outside, and it got smaller as it got in, and that's wrong. That's off, because let's see. Yeah, because in the south, Simeon is the biggest one. Yeah, so what happens in the order, right, that I have, maybe I'll have an image up if you're following on YouTube. That might be easier to keep up. But essentially, anything you do, you can look at population, you can look at names, you can look at like name meanings, alphabetical order, letters in the name. Like you can go through every single like thing that you can think of to see like where is the pattern There is zero pattern, zero pattern. Literally any pattern you put against it, there will be one side, north, south, east, west, that breaks the pattern. Like there is no pattern that works all the way through. To me, that's impressive. That there is zero pattern. There's no explanation. And so that's alphabetical order doesn't work. Like, guys, I've tried it all. I've even tried like adding up the numbers, changing the letters of the names to numbers and adding them up. I've literally gone through every iteration of possibility that could happen, even if it was meaningless, like adding up letters and numbers and seeing, whatever. Even that, right? Which, like, who cares if that's the case? But like name meanings, like, okay, the east side, with Judah, like that makes sense. You have dwelling or honor, there is recompense, and there's praise. Thinking about Judah, the Lion of Judah, with praise and king, it's like, oh, kingship is on the right side, and then whatever. But then there's some that like literally make no sense, and some that repeat. So there is no rhyme or reason to why God decided this way, which is a point of just trust me, right? I think that becomes the pattern that we see, the greater pattern. But here, like, there was no logical reason, right? And that's like, it is important for us to understand that, right? Like, I know people try to draw out meanings from these kinds of texts and try to make it like supernatural and mystical and try to like really, bring some kind of awe to you in some mystical way. Let me tell you, they're fools. Like, there is no rhyme or reason. There is no interpretation of this. The matter of fact is, God just wanted it this way, right? The most you can do is that this makes an X. Just kidding. It makes a cross, like that. That's the whole thing. But it's a T, like a lowercase t. No, like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's not like a cross. Not, at least not the way that we understand it and see it. And, or I guess a lowercase t is a cross. I mean, like a plus sign. It's either a plus sign, an X, and you can't, you just, again, you can play with that idea. You can be like, wow, it's there, but it's not like anyone had a bird's eye view to see the cross anyways, and so pure obedience, just pure obedience, completely arbitrary. But that's what God wants. I think another thing too is to understand. I think this is, chapter 3, end of chapter 2 into chapter 3. I guess, wait. Nadab and Abihu died offering strange fires. I think that happened before. It's re-mentioned. I just wrote it down. I don't know why. But I guess in that context of arbitrariness of just obeying and doing things the way he wants it, right? That's what got them two killed. I think we see that in this context. I guess, in Leviticus, there's like, maybe, like, this is an afterthought, right? So this is processed by Moses as he writes this. So maybe that's why I like highlight, because I didn't highlight anything. I just wrote the verse. Yeah. But verse 12 and 14 of chapter 3, you see, you're taking the sons of Israel instead of every firstborn, the firstborn of the womb among the sons of Israel. So the Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I fatally struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified to myself all the firstborn in Israel from the house From the human firstborn to the animal, they shall be mine. I am the Lord. And so what is the significance here is that most A&E cultures, right, ancient Near Eastern cultures, Egyptians, Canaanites, anyone else, they were kind of, maybe not the Egyptians, but early Meso-Egyptian cultures demanded firstborn as sacrifice or servanthood. Okay, so these kinds of cultures, demanded either sacrifice of the firstborn, and we see this like with Molech, right? I think it's the like Midianites or something. They sacrifice their firstborns straight up. This is like the whole like, throw a virgin in a volcano to appease the gods kind of deal. Like this is just what they did in the Near Eastern cultures, and God was completely separate from that, and he just took one of the tribes to himself and said, you guys will represent their firstborn. So your servanthood and your devotion and dedication to serving me appeases that for the whole community. And now you're like, oh man, you got a whole population to do that? Well, guess what? Now families all stick together. I think that's the beautiful part, right? We talk about perspective and seeing like the do's and don'ts and having perspective where like, God shows you a can't, but like in that there's a can. And so when we look at this idea, like, oh man, a whole people, well, I mean, I don't know, maybe you're not even thinking that, you're not even looking at it, but and that doesn't even bother me. It might bother somebody, but let's not do that, because I guess what I just explained, no one cares, right? But to me, it's a beautiful picture of, okay, families of all the other tribes get to stay together, and they have that gratitude because they come from these kinds of cultures, and they know that there's a context there, and they know, like, man, this is a mercy in my life. And then you have a family that has the same mission to serve, right? And that becomes their culture. And so everyone stays together and everyone is happy, and religion and worship does not destroy and separate these families like the religions around them. So I think that is very cool. And then, so in chapter 3, it keeps on going. So the Levitical duties, right? You have the Gershonites, who, like, within the Levites, they get the soft things, essentially curtains, coverings, hangings, all that. You have the Kohathites, who bring the holy objects, right? Ark, table, lampstand, altar, yada yada. And then you have the Merarites, who bring the frames, bars, pillars, the hard things. So that's how it splits up. And, they carry that wherever God goes, and they do that, right? Verse 5, this is probably where I'll end things, and this is where it gets wild, bro. Okay, here. So, verse 12 through 31. Again, I did some dots here, because 12 to 31, that's like half the chapter. Okay, so, oh no. If any man's wife goes astray and breaks faith with him, ... And if the spirit of jealousy, okay, I'm verse 14 now. And if the spirit of jealousy comes over him and he is jealous, I put in brackets, whether it happened or not, ... Verse 15. Then the man shall bring his wife to the priest and bring the offering required to her, of her, a tenth of an ephah of barley flour, ... For it is a grain offering of jealousy, grain offering of remembrance, bringing iniquity. Dude, I'm not going to read this. But essentially, this sorry, I'm like trying to read my handwriting. This is awful. Oh my God. Okay, so, look at chapter 5, verse 12 through 31, you get this wild image, right? And essentially what it is they offer fine flour, but then they make some kind of concoction, which is the dust from the ark, like the area of the holy place, with water, and the ink. So they like write out, I don't know if it's their name or it's some kind of contract. They write it out in ink and they throw it in there so that the ink disperses as well. And then they drink that. Now, scientifically, this could not kill a baby. Okay. And so that causes a speculation on what's going on here, right? So here are some points to think about. So stops abusive paranoia from husband. Okay. So for example, what's that movie? Oh my gosh. The one with the old Peter Parker and Jake Gyllenhaal and their brothers, and Spider-Man like goes on a rampage, right? He's paranoid that his brother's sleeping with his wife. So that right there, this would stop that. You know what I mean? It'd be like, oh, whose baby is that? Or, what's going on? Whatever. And like, instead of going psycho, you do this. So this protects the woman, first of all. And second of all, it eases the mind of the man. So that's one thing that does happen, right? Fear and intimidating against infidelity, right? So if you know that there is 100% chance you're going to get caught, right? Because what were the consequences? If the concoction worked, right, that meant that you were cheating. It says that your thighs will fall off. Like you're pregnant and your thigh will fall off, which again, it's an abortion. The definition of an abortion is inducing a miscarriage. So yeah. So this process, and it is spiritual. Like if you went to go do this, this is not going to kill your kid. This is not going to do anything to your baby if you drink dirt with ink. You know what I mean? Like you're just going to cough and be like, whatever. It's not going to do anything. So there was something extremely spiritual about this and mystical. Like this was divine judgment. It had to be divine judgment. There is a 0 possibility chance that this would actually physically harm the baby. So, I think, and so there is no indication of any false negatives or false positives, meaning, that anyone got away with it or died innocently, or not died, sorry, but, became cursed innocently. There's 0 indication of this. So we have to assume 100% accuracy. It's in God's hands. Okay. It's not on the priest. It's not on the husband. It's not on the woman. This is not an act of human will, right? It's not and I've seen pastors do this where like they'll do like an altar call and then like almost stare at people that they know, like, you should be up here. Guys, oh my goodness, dude. The people are people, you know what I mean? But dude, I've seen this a few times and I'm like, bro, what are you doing, man? Just because you got some dark circle, he'll be like, oh, who needs healing from, pornography or whatever. And then he'll be praying like, come on, come out here, don't be, don't be scared, don't be shy, whatever. And they'll be like looking at people and it's like, bro, this guy works on Japan time. What are you talking about? He's got dark circles in his eyes. Assuming that he watches pornography is crazy, bro. Oh my goodness. But yeah, bro, I've seen too much of that. So in that sense of like, bro, I know you were with Jimmy, bro. Don't even. But only God decides. God knows, and the punishment comes from Him. So that's that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, this is crazy. right? If we really think about it, that God, like, one way, I guess, to look at it is, oh, it's just a scare tactic. Now, I don't think we can read anything in that sense of like, oh, it's just a scare tactic to get them in line. You know, we have to assume that God sticks to his word because he's done it in the past, right? He said, like, for example, there's a story later in Numbers where somebody broke the Sabbath by collecting sticks. Dude, yeah, I'm going to laugh about it next time too. But the guy on a Saturday, bro, just picking up some sticks, and a group of men grab him, go to Moses and say, what do we do with this guy? He was picking up sticks. And then they like keep him on house arrest or whatever. And God was like, yeah, stone him to death. And they're like, okay. They did, dude. So it's like they took these things seriously. We can't assume like, it's just to scare the women to be faithful or like to ease the mind of the man. These things did happen as byproduct, as, consequence. But that wasn't the reason why God said it and did it. God said it because it would happen, you know? And so then we have to deal with the fact that, man, that's tough. I even almost don't even want to say it. It's almost heresy, dude. But for the season, descriptively, maybe, God allowed abortion on his terms. On his terms. I think that's really important. And I think maybe that's even, again, I don't, it's, let me reframe this conversation about abortion if I can. Like, okay, obviously killing babies is not cool. I think that, but it's deeper than that. And I think that's the important part. It's not that you're playing God, you're doing all these things. It's that you don't trust that God will take care of you, or you don't trust that God is going to make a man of God or a woman of God out of that baby beyond your capabilities. It's a lack of faith that people get rid of their children. And I think this idea is like, that's central to the gospel, is that you don't do things because you're morally bad or whatever. We do the wrong things because we lack faith. And if we change our perspective in that, we know, and if we change our perspective, we now know what's really deep down at the deepest part of why we rebel and disobey and, all of these things and do bad things and whatever. At the heart of that, if we understand that, plus knowing the fountain, knowing where we can get the answers, where we can be satisfied, where we can be filled, our lives can change. Truly, from the deepest parts of our souls, we can change. And so here we have this crazy example, crazy thing of God allowing like a divine induced miscarriage, if you want to be cute with it. But God allowed abortion, and like, look, I am in ugly territory right now, and I will just, shove my foot deeper into my mouth. But I've seen miscarriages happen, and this is hard, this is rough, but like perhaps it was for the best. And that's like, I know I say that out loud. I'm like, crap. But I think in God's infinite wisdom, because our assumption is, right, that every child should be born alive, well, and da-da-da. And I think that if we shed this thick veil of like what's right, and we think about destructive, constructive, we think about wisdom, we think about, life-giving, we try to um, expand our idea of what is good. If God allowed for that miscarriage, I think there's only one reason, you know. And I think I'm thinking about couples that like weren't together, hated each other, whatever, have a miscarriage, and it's like, oh, maybe they're better off or whatever. Or like a mother that hates the kid, you know, like doesn't want it and has a miscarriage. You're like, oh, you know, fine, thank God, you know, whatever. But I know that there's some couples that are just trying, and they also can't, and they would be great parents. And I also think of them. And look, I say what I say and know that there is, you know, it's not a full answer. It's a different answer. It brings different things to the table. And maybe that's just all I'm doing. Um, yeah, I don't know if you turned this off 10 minutes ago or whatever, but yeah, like it's okay to just sit in this. I think this is better than pretending like this is like some cold case of morality. You know, like can we just be real and vulnerable and like icky with being raw, you know? Like I don't shy away from these questions. It doesn't bother me if you're like heretic. It's like, all right, man, if you want to stay in like an elementary level theology or an elementary level understanding of the world that you live in, dude, fine. If you want everything to be black and white, that's your prerogative, man. But I'm here for the truth. I'm here for whatever that looks like, and that means asking some gnarly questions and having some gnarly possibilities of responses, you know. And so I think to tie it all up in a bow, I think it's this idea again, obedience, faith, trust, right? And we will continue to see this, and we'll continue to, I'm going to hit this over and over and over again because this thing of like, oh, God is good and God wants good things, and what good is defined by me. Essentially, like if you really want to like be blunt about what's going on in everyone's mind when they have this discussion, that's the discussion where I can sit in, hey, God is arbitrary, but I want to trust him because of maybe of what he's done in my life or because of who he is, right? Like, I don't know. We do this enough with our bosses. Like, oh yeah, he's not a perfect man, but he pays me, so he can tell me to do whatever I want, or he can tell me what to do. We do this with governments, but when it's God, it's like, oh, there must be a reason. There must be like this clean cut, you know, framework that he works under, and it's like, or he has his preferences and he understands way more than we understand in terms of the depths of our needs, the storyline of our lives, and he considers all of these things and works all things to the good of those who love him. That verse even is just fascinating to me because God, it's not that this is the kicker, right? We read that verse and you're like, oh, well, then he works bad for those who don't love him. That's not what it's saying. He works all things for the good, but only those who love him can see it. Meaning, if you don't love him, you can't see the good. And you're like, why is this happening to me? Why does my life suck? Why is, you know, all these things? But if we love God, if we start to love God, understand God, we can see his wisdom, we can see his hand in everything. And that like changes our framework of how we see our lives. I think of like those people that thank God for getting caught and going to jail. You know, it's like going to jail is never good. What do you mean? Doing bad things isn't good. Well, that was the life he was living. And he got caught, and that restored his life. And he can see it, you know? And so I guess in that, I'm glad I crawled out of this, pulled my foot out of my mouth. But we get to this point where I can't answer, hey, this is a good thing in your life and da da da. But if you love God, if you pursue that, and if you try to understand his wisdom and you try to understand his grace and his love and his mercy in your life, like just maybe, you know, you'll get the answers you're looking for. So this is part 1. Again, I've gone through 5 chapters. This is a book of 30 chapters, 31, I think. And so, yeah, I'm going to take it slow, dude. I was supposed to do this in 2 weeks. And then I was supposed to, I had it all scheduled out so that I'd finish at the end of December. It's not going to happen, you know? So yeah, guys, thank you. So if you've gotten this far, okay, with my hot take and my borderline heresies, thank you so much. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the love. You guys are like fantastic. Love you guys. All right. I'll see you. Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.